What we're really doing here is talking about a piece of software, nowadays called an app, but in my days it was called a program, which is designed to do nothing else but to edit and to show pictures. And it now has the opportunity of being able to show a video as well, but we're not going to talk about that. The program itself is called View. It's free. It's totally free. One of those very few pieces of software which doesn't have anything in it at all that has anything you wouldn't want, and they don't want money. They have no way to give them money, and you must ask yourself, why in the world would somebody continue with this thing? The truth is, the man who designed it, whose surname I cannot say, but you'll see in a few minutes, his first name's Irfan, did it as an exercise, developed it over about 15 years. He's now got a horrific job as a programmer, but he still occasionally makes little changes, and I'm going to walk you through it now so you can see what we do. So let's make a little bit of a start on our presentation, and this is a little slideshow to sort of show you a little bit about it. View is the world's most popular freeware program for personal computers based on the Microsoft system and also for Linux, and you can install it on a Mac. I've managed to do it. Not something you'd tackle probably because it's a little bit complicated, but it's still a fantastic bit of software. And in a bit of research this morning, I had a look, and I did check. It is the world's most popular piece of freeware. If we don't count modern apps for phones, this is the number one, which is quite remarkable for a program that's now 15 years old. It's the world's number one free app in all areas, and it was first released in 1996. It's not regularly updated. Irfan, and I'm sorry, I won't attempt to pronounce his surname, lives in Vienna. He's a Bosnian and a very smart man. The particularly great thing about this software is it's tiny. It is the smallest program that will be on your computer. 3.5 megabytes of download, which is virtually nothing by today's standards. He does get donated revenue from commercial users, and that keeps him going. And why he has a cat, this little picture you can see up here of a cat, a red cat with white eyes. Well, he just likes cats. It's a bit of a strange thing. So firstly, I thought, just to be a little different, we'd talk about the installation of View, how to get it onto your computer, because that's something which sometimes presenters like me completely forget about. And I want to make sure you know how to do it. The most important and most significant thing I can mention to you is you must make sure you download the program from the developer's website. That pretty much applies always. Don't go downloading it on the very first link you find in Google. Go to the site that is labeled irfanview.com. Otherwise, you're likely to get something else, because everybody knows how popular this is, and there'll be lots of dodgy copies of it around. So I'm going to demonstrate to you how it's done, and I'm going to do it by going this. So you're now looking at a web page. If you look at the top of the screen, you'll see it says irfanview.com, and there are two sort of versions of it, one called 64-bit, one called 32-bit. I'm not going any further than that, but to tell you, if your laptop is is newer than 10 years old, you'll want the 64-bit version. This is the one we're talking about, and as I scan down the page, you'll see towards the bottom there is an option that says download Irfanview 64 in English version 4.54, and that's what we're going to do. So I've clicked on it now, and if you look in the bottom left-hand corner of my screen, you'll see it's already downloaded.
Paul, it's Greg here.
Yes.
I can't see your presentation.
Okay, let's have a little look and see what we can do about that. How does that look? See it now?
I can see it, Paul. I'm not sure if anyone else can.
Okay, well, okay.
I can see it as well. And
Okay,
I can
thank you
see
very
it.
much. Thank you. Well, you'll notice it now down in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. It now says, I'm using Google Chrome, by the way, as my browser, but it doesn't really matter which one you use. It says iView 64, something or other there, setup. And to install it, all I really need to do is to click it, and it will go through the steps. I'm sure you can see on the screen now, it says something about, do you want to allow this app to make changes to your device? And I do. And I'm just simply going to click on next, next, and here comes the question I particularly want to show you. Notice it says images only, select all or none. If images only is the one highlighted with the blue box around it, that's what we want. And you'll notice it's got ticks now on all of the images that you might want to use on your computer. I'm going to say next, next, and say yes. And it's done. And that's what it looks like. A simple black screen with a menu bar across the top and some shortcuts there you can use. And of course, at the moment, it's black because I'm not looking at an image. But the way Windows works is that from now on, when you want to look at an image on your computer, View will be the software that allows you to look at it. If you don't like it that way and you're sick of it, you want to go back to the way your computer was originally, all it's a matter of doing is uninstalling View. And if we've got time, I'll show you how to do that a little bit later. All right, now we're going to go back to where I was, hopefully. And we're going to talk about, I've mentioned already, you should choose images only. And when installed, Windows will assume it's the default image viewer. It's just possible because Windows is particularly greedy about this, I think that's the right word. It may say to you on the screen, well, we don't recommend this. That's because they want you to use their software. But truthfully, this is better, and you'll see why as we go through it. You can remove it at any time by using the uninstaller that comes with View. And to do that, all you really need to do, if you're not used to it in Windows, is to use either the Windows key on your keyboard and type the word remove, and it's very easy to find it there. If you've got any questions about that, I'm very happy to answer questions at the end. One of the things it will ask you is, people ask me, should I install the plugins that come with it? I wouldn't recommend it. There's absolutely no need to, because what we're using it for is really just for looking at pictures. Knowing the shortcuts is very important. If you're a very good user of something like Photoshop, using the shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts, really makes a difference to the speed with which you get to do things. And there are some that are really essential in this program. I'm going to mention them as we go along. All right, well now let's move on how we use View. And I'll start by just mentioning a couple of things before we actually look at the software itself. You can add text to a picture. You can crop it. You can cut or copy it, part of it, and put it into another picture if you wish to. You can resize a photo. You can resample it, that is, make it either bigger or smaller. You can rotate it. You can flip it vertically or horizontally. You can change it from one format to another. You can adjust the colors, the color depth. You can make them grayscale. Fantastic option if you've got older black and white photos. It makes them look really terrific. Red eye reduction, of course, nothing unusual there. You can sharpen the photos. Many of the Photoshop plugins are compatible with it. You can insert text. You can edit IPTC info. What in the world is IPTC info? That's the information that gets put into the photograph, which you can't see by your camera. So if you've got a smartphone, you take a photograph, not only do you see the photograph, but hidden behind it is a lot of information about that photo, where you took it, when you took it, what focal length, and you can edit all that inside View or get rid of it altogether if you wish to. You can copy them, delete the pictures, you can rename them, I've mentioned converting. The most significant thing of all is this thing called batch conversion, which means if you've got 100 photos and you want to rename them all easily, this software is the one for you. You can change everything so that they're all of a particular size, all of a particular type, all of a particular name series, all done inside FNView. Not bad for what the simple program. You can create contact sheets. You'll remember in the old days with photographs, you know, after the wedding, you had a sheet of contact. You can create one of those and print it if you want to, of all the photos, so you're not wasting too much paper. Create thumbnails, web gallery, all sorts of things. I'm only just mentioned a few here. So now we're going to step through the program, and I'm going to hope this all works very well for us so that we can actually see it in use. So here we are in FNView. This is the one we looked at a little bit earlier. And I'm going to open up a picture. I'm going to do it the way you might not normally do it. I'm going to click on the word File up in the top left-hand corner. And I'm going to click on the word Open. And I'm going to choose a picture. Now, it remembered where I was last time. It knew I was looking at pictures of cats. I chose them for this seminar so that, you know, we'd all get the warm and fuzzy feeling. So I'm going to open up the first one, and there is a picture of our cat. Now, this cat is just a simple image on your computer. It could be a picture of your grandchild. It could be a picture of a scenery, whatever it is. And there are many, many things you can do with this now. And I'm going to step through it. One of the most useful things of all is you can create a slideshow so that it is all the photographs that are in that particular folder will slide past at a standard rate, which you can vary, so that if you want to, you can set it up on your screen of your computer and they would show a slideshow. Let's have a little bit of a look at it. See if I can get this to go for you. I'll go and do it the best way to do it. If I go to View and I choose Slideshow, there it is. It's Shift A is the shortcut key. When I say Shift A, it means hold the Shift key down on your keyboard and then just after it, press the letter A and let them both go. So that's what we're doing. I've done it now. And in a few seconds, this picture will change to the next picture of a cat. I've got, look, hands-free. And they will run through all these pictures of cats that I've got just from that one folder where all the cats were. Very charming, I'm sure. To stop the slideshow, you simply press the Escape key on your keyboard. Oops, I shouldn't have done that. We'll just get back into it. Sorry, folks, slight delay here. Right, well, it should be right this time, I think. Let's have a little look. Just having a little difficulty. Here we are, we're right this time. Okay, we're back in. So we opened up that picture of the cat. I'll just do it once again because I foolishly clicked the wrong thing. There's our cat. These are some of the things you can do with this now. By clicking on the file option, there are many things in here that you can do. One of them is the slideshow that we mentioned, which means you can run through them one after the other. The most important part of FNView is this one, batch conversion rename. And in there, I'm able to ask the software to rename or change every picture inside the folder. I'll show you a quick look, but I'm not going to go too far into it. In here, you can see there's a number there. You can see all the pictures of all these cats. I can ask it, for example, to rename them all. And there, the option here is batch rename. See, I've just changed it there. And I can give it a new name, and it will not overwrite the ones you already have. It just creates another lot of them. So if I wanted to, I could rename them all We'll call it something a little bit different here. We'll call it I don't know. Well, let's try June for some reason. And you notice it's got little hash marks after it. You just leave that there like that, because that will give it June 1, June 2, June 3, June 4, and so on. So I add all the pictures to the little list here, and I say do it. And it runs through, and it's done. It's converted them all from their original name of cat to June. Now June 6, June 7, June 8, June 9, June 10. And if I had a look in my computer now, in a new folder called temp in the computer, very easy to see when you go into the File Explorer, there are all these cats in there now named something else. I could spend the next 2 hours talking to you about all the things you can do in the batch conversion. The most useful things are, for example, changing it to grayscale, changing them all to grayscale, or making them all a bit bigger, or making them all a bit smaller, depending on your needs. Fantastic stuff to do. One of the most useful things in here is down the bottom here. Notice it says acquire batch scanning. Strange English to use there, but it's saying to me, do we want to do some scanning? And okay, well, it's unfortunately it's in use at the moment by somebody else in the house, but that will connect to your scanner and allow you to scan the pictures straight into Avpals without having to use any other software. Of course, print. And print gives you the opportunity just to print it just the way it is to your printer that's the default in your computer. And you can print them in many different formats. You can print them on a shiny paper, of course, 4 to a page, whatever you want to do. All right, let's move on. We'll run out of time otherwise. Let's look at the next option across, which is edit. And in edit, there are many options. I'm only going to mention a couple. Here's what beauty, insert text. Insert text allows you to type in some text. I'm going to put in here Avpals, for example. I've just typed the word Avpals. It asks me, is that the color of the greeny color? Is that the color I want? I could click on color and choose another color. We'll choose something a bit more appropriate. And then I'm going to click on OK. And nothing happened. And the reason is because I didn't choose one other option. Another go at this. Avpals, we want transparency. It's probably just a bit small. Get the glasses on. That's better. Yes, we want it to be none. You can just see it up the top there, the word Avpals. Now that's a tiny little one. I could have made it much bigger. But if you want to put some text on the screen, it embeds it in the photograph, but nothing happens until you save it. So you can fiddle around with this all you like. You're never going to wreck your original pictures. And if you attempt to save it, it will ask you, are you sure you want to do this? So you've got another option. Going back to the other things you can do in here, there are just so many of them. There's insert a watermark image. You can, for example, put a watermark onto each picture so that hidden in there is your name. So if somebody decides to steal this picture from you after you put so much effort into it, you can go and identify it afterwards. Let's move on to the next option across the page, which is image, because there's a lot of very good things in here. I'm going to choose the very first one, information. This will tell us everything there is to know about that picture. It tells us the original size of it. It tells you what size the thing would print if you printed it in its original size. It tells you, for example, in this case, it's got 16.7 million colors, which is pretty standard. It tells us how much space it's using on the disk, 380 kilobytes, and a few other things, including the file date stamp, the date in which the picture was taken, and the time and the seconds. All of that in there. Pretty amazing stuff. That's a useful thing to know. The two things that I like doing most of all with this are rotating left and rotating right. You notice the letter to the right of it, L for left, R for right. Let's watch this. I'm going to press the L key on my keyboard. Now I'm going to press the R key. Now I'm going to press the left key twice. And when you turn the picture around like that, you can resave it and it will be in that format. So maybe you took a whole lot of pictures that are upside down. This is a very quick way to do it. And in fact, in the batch processing that we looked at initially, you can convert them all, hundreds at a time, thousands at a time, if you like, into a different aspect. So left and right is particularly useful. There are a couple of other ones that are useful. If I can just find them, here we are on my screen. It's H for horizontal. See what it's done is to put the cat round facing the other way, which might be something you might like to do. And then I think vertical, you can make the cat go straight round to being upside down. So there are all sorts of lovely things you can do there. Converting to grayscale is one of those menu options. I love using the shortcut for this, which is the letter, believe it or not, G. G for grayscale. So I hold the control key down and I press the letter G, and that's what happens. I really quite like grayscale. I think it adds sometimes quite a dimension to some pictures. Maybe not the cat. This cat needs a bit of color. So I'm going to put it back the way it was, which I can do easily enough by going up to it. You can just change it back. The way I would do it is use the undo key. Put your hand up if you know what the undo key is for Windows. Anybody going to put their hand up? What's the undo key always in every Windows program? It's Control Z. Hold the Control key down and press the letter Z. And it puts it back the way it was. So for everything you ever do in Windows, if you make a mistake, if you move a file somewhere you didn't mean to, if you put it in the recycle bin and you didn't mean to, you can always go Control Z and it puts it back. It's the same with absolutely everything. If you write some text and you accidentally delete everything on the page, you can put it all back again with Control Z. All right, let's move on. We've talked about how to move it around. Resize, resample is one of the most significant things. This is the one that allows you to make the photo bigger or smaller. Now in here, if I click on it, it says the option says set new size with a width of so many pixels, height and width. Let's just change that briefly to centimeters, so it means a bit more to us. If I want to, I could make this picture, we'll cut it down by a bit. I'll make it 40. And I don't know whether you noticed, but the height changed automatically because it wants to keep the picture in the same proportions. I'm going to say OK, and that picture didn't change when you're looking at it, but in the background, the picture is now 50% less of size. So if I was to save that picture, it would be exactly perfectly good, just look at, but has lost a lot of its unnecessary size. So if you wanted to put a lot of pictures, for example, on a USB stick to take to family members, this is a really good way of quickly getting the resolution of the original pictures, which are often grossly too large. Modern cameras today, particularly the phone cameras, create pictures that are sometimes 6 or 7 megabytes big, when in fact they only need to be half a megabyte. So that's a good thing to know. Back where we were, we can decrease and increase the color depth. These are the sort of things you can just play with. You're not going to affect your original photos. So don't feel like you're going to do. There's a little auto adjust colors. Now on this photo, it's not going to do anything because the photo is quite well exposed. It's in good condition, but if it's very dark or way too light, that option, notice the shortcut key is Shift U, will auto adjust the colors. Let's move on to options. I'm very carefully watching the time here. Under options, we've got so many different things you can do down here. You can could produce multi-pages, so you can have lots of photos going at once. You can capture the screenshot. Here's a good thing, C for capture. That means when you just touch the letter C on your keyboard, and in the background you might have a Word document going or an email letter to somebody, if you press the letter C whilst you're looking at this and you go into that program and you go, who knows the shortcut key for pasting? Let me just have a look. Chrissy, you know it, don't you? Yes. You hold the control key down and you press the letter V, and that will paste that picture into your email. Not as an attachment, right inside the email. Fantastic thing. Set as wallpaper, one of the options I really quite like, which means that if you really, this is the family cat, you want to change the wallpaper, that is your desktop picture, into being a picture of that picture. All it's a matter of doing is clicking that button. You've given a few choices. You could have a center of the desktop. You could fill the desktop. You can stretch it. You can do all sorts of things. And that will make it the desktop. And you can change it as often as you like. There are many, many more things in here. You can look, for example, at this picture in full screen. If you wanted to particularly look at it in full screen, all you need to do would be to press the full screen, press enter, you'll notice on the keyboard. I'm not going to do it for this example, because if I do press enter, I'm going to have to press escape to get out of it, and then we're all going to be in trouble again, so I don't want to do that. There's that start, stop automatic viewing option, Shift A. It means it will run through all the photographs that you've got one by one with a delay of 5 seconds. You can zoom in. See what I'm doing? Every time I click it, the picture gets a little bit closer. Zoom in. Notice that there's a shortcut key there. It's the plus key. So if I press plus on my keyboard right now, which I'm going to do, there's the cat getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right up to the whiskers. And yes, you're right, the one that takes it back again is the minus key, which I'm now doing. Putting it back the way it was. Remember, keeping in mind all the time, these photos are not saved until you save them. I don't want you to feel that you should be worried about that. Well, now that's pretty much what I wanted to show you there. I could spend hours and hours on this, and I use it an enormous amount. The reason I use it a lot is because my hobby in life, unpaid, I'm very disappointed to say, is designing web pages. And I do it for a number of organisations. I couldn't do it without Avpals. Somebody sends me 50 photographs. They want them all put on their web page, and they're all sorts of sizes and shapes. I use Avpals View, and in about 30 seconds, I've got them all exactly the shape I want, with the right of size, and it's just fantastic. There are plenty of programs around like Avpals. In fact, Windows comes with a beauty called Photo, but it doesn't have the batch functions. It isn't as simple to use. You can't use the left and right keys and up and down. All those shortcut keys are not there. So I strongly recommend you consider using it. Thank you, everybody. I do hope that you'll have learned something from that. And now I'd like to open it up for you to turn your microphones on, or somebody will do it for you, and you can ask some questions if you like.
Thank you very much, Paul. That was a great presentation. Now, I'm going to unmute you all, but I do ask that you've turned off your mobile phones, please. And one by one, if you have a question for Paul, please put your hand up and I'll try and take you in order. So I'm going to
John, you're up first, John.
Paul, getting the photos in Windows 10, that's fairly easy, getting the photographs from the photographs in Windows. What about the sub file I have for Google Photos?
Yes, the photos, you've got them in Google Photos, and they're not on your computer, are they, or are they?
No, they're not.
I would recommend that you install, if you haven't done so, the Google app for your Windows 10, which is Google, it's called Google Photos, strangely enough. If you look on Google for the app that they have to install in Windows 10. It's a tremendous asset. And it means the photographs in your Google Photos become the same as the ones on your, equal to the ones on your computer. You know what I mean?
No, I don't. So
Okay.
this is an app which I download in Windows 10.
That's correct.
Which is Google what?
It's called Google Backup. I think it's called Google Backup. I think it's its new name. It's had a couple of different names, but it's very like using OneDrive if you've used OneDrive, except that it's the Google one, and
Right.
it does the same thing as OneDrive. It's like cloud storage, and all your photos you've got in Google Photos are in cloud storage. You'd like a copy of them on your own computer, and that's the way you would do it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just have a little look for Google Photos, install it. If you don't like it, take it off again. Sharon,
Would
you
you
want
like to ask the next? Chris?
Yeah.
Chris,
Hi, Paul. It's Chris.
Okay. Hi,
Just,
Chris.
just a question. You were saying to save your photos. I was just wondering where that save button is.
Very good question. Very good. I should have mentioned it. Firstly, the letter. What do you think might be the letter to save the picture?
That's probably yes.
All you have to do is tap the S key.
Oh,
And
okay.
if you press the S key, it will ask you the question, where do you want to save it? You might not want to overwrite the ones that you've already originally got. So you might choose a different folder. That's what I usually do. I
Right.
create a folder before I start called, you know, something. And when I click save, after the very first one, it will ask me where I want that saved.
Yes.
After that, every time you press the S key, it will save it.
Great. Thank you, Paul.
next question. Sharon, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself?
That's it. Thank you, Sharon.
Okay.
You're right.
Okay, Paul, if I have a document and I want to insert a photo, if I sort of right click, open, go to photo, it will insert exactly in the document as I want.
Yes, that you're talking about if you're using a word processing program and
Yeah.
you type some text, you want to put some picture at that point. It's not really nothing to do with Earth-End View. That's a simple function of the word processor. But of course, if you've enhanced the picture in some way, you'll want to make sure that when you right-click, you choose the photo in the new folder you created, which have been enhanced. You see what I mean? You wouldn't want to use the old one. And what you're saying is a very good thing, because if you're writing a very big document and you're using the original size of all the images you might have on hand that you want to include, it can make that document very big. And it's a complete waste of time. You're much better off reducing the size of the image. I'm talking about its kilobyte size by using Earth-End View to much smaller ones. And then the document is in itself easy to move around. You can email it to people without having the overhead of a lot of graphics.
So do I get you right? The first thing I have to do is,
this one?
I've got photos on my computer, go to those photos, resave them as an Earth-End View. If then I insert it into my document, I can't use it or resize it there and even add text to it in the document.
You can, but it's laborious, particularly if you're going to do a lot of them. If you've got one or two photos, then by all means, right-click the photo inside Word and change them in there. But really, it's just as simple to do, change them all first. Then they're all of a uniform size. Give it a try, and you'll be
Okay.
pleasantly
Where okay, I'm sorry, but one more question. Where I was stuck is I wanted to insert a map, and I ended up going back to Word, to Microsoft Photos, but I wanted to put in text in different locations on the map. And so I assume I can move text around and so on.
Sure, there's no problem with that. Keep in mind that when you say Microsoft Photos, you're not really meaning that. What you're meaning is Microsoft Photos is a bit of software that looks at the photos. But the photos themselves are actually kept in a folder on your computer.
Yeah, under pictures.
Under pictures. Right. Next, please. Anyone else?
Questions?
Jeanette.
Jeanette.
Yes, if you resize a photo and send it an email, the recipient can resize it back to a particular size? Or do they have to have Earthphone view?
No. They won't ever know. They will never know. The photo that you resize in Earthphone view, assuming you save it, will be reduced in kilobyte size. They will never know. Occasionally I'll get one and I'll say to somebody, have you got a better copy of this? And then, of course, you could send them the original. Because I would not recommend you overwrite the originals until you're very comfortable with doing it. The trick about this whole thing is to have a practice. Set yourself aside a cold morning, a cup of tea, maybe 2 cups of tea, and just have a play with it. So as to not, you won't wreck your originals. You can play with it and you'll be happy with it. Mary, I think you had a question.
Yes, thank you, Paul. I didn't even know that this program existed, so thanks very much for explaining it. Does the program repair old photos? And by that I mean if you have a photo that's been damaged and sometimes it's got white splotches on it instead of black as it deteriorates with age, can you put the colour back in the spot that has been damaged, please?
Simply no. The answer to that question is no. The reason is software's been around a long time. If he was to add that function, it would increase the size of the program immensely. Having said that, the one that's built into Windows Photo has got quite a good spot blemish remover that I use pretty regularly and gets rid of cracks in old photos and things. I really quite like it.
All right, thank you very much for that. Thank you.
We have time for one more question, then I want to make a couple of announcements. Are there any more questions? Sharon.
Yeah, if Paul, as I said, I was struggling at first, so I took it off default. If Earthphone is still on my computer, I can go back and choose to use the photo with Earthphone view as opposed to the default, can I?
Sure, and you can change in and out any number of times you like. And if for some reason you want to look at the photo in something else, after you've looked at it in Earthphone view, you can right-click it and choose some other option.
Okay.
It is not the absolute answer to everything. Photoshop is the answer to everything. But firstly, it's dead expensive, where Earthphone view is free. And secondly, it takes a lifetime to learn all of the tricks. And I frankly, although I have had a play with Photoshop, and I love it, I can see the point, it is really cracking that that nut with an enormous hammer, where Earthphone view is such a simple, quick solution.